Видимо, очень громко. А нет, все нормально, меня слышно. Спасибо всем.
Кому мы переводим?
Я предупреждаю сразу.
Thank you very much for everyone who has come, and I'll try.
О чем я хочу вам рассказать. Знаете, замена. Узнал, что замена ушел. Все. Одним меньше. Нет, решил слушать на другом языке. Думал, I can switch to English, yeah? No. Forgot about it.
Забудьте, по-английски говорить не буду, буду говорить по-русски.
Поговорить. Дело в том, что в связи с тем, что я очень много времени трачу.
I spent quite a lot of time hiring personnel, and I've been doing this for a couple of recent years, which is half of my work time. And I'm responsible for hiring quality assurance specialists, but really we hire quality assurance engineers. We do not have any other specialists and never had before. Let me introduce myself. My name is Aleksandr Gritsevski. I work for a small company, and I don't have to hire any person at the moment, but then I'd like to talk to you about three aspects. The first one is education of quality software engineers. The second aspect is the tasks which can be assigned to quality specialists. I will try to use some of the English words to facilitate the work of the interpreters. And the third thing I'm going to talk about is the knowledge and experience that such specialists should possess. So let's go one by one. Education. I'll present my opinion, my views on that, and I do not know how to work in an IT if a quality assurance specialist does not have a bachelor's degree. Preferably, I can accept if it's just a specialist who has qualification in applied science, but this is the minimum requirement. The best would be to have an engineer with the master's degree or a master's degree in computer science, because these guys know well how to talk, but they don't know how to do things with their hands. And the ideal combination would be when a person has got the PhD degree. And I can say that based on my experience of working for 10 years for a German company. When I became a team member, I had 10 quality assurance specialists in my team, and I was the only one who had the master's degree. The rest of them had PhDs. You see, that's the team which I had. And it was believed on the level of the company management that the quality assurance specialist is the most expensive human resource. There can't be anyone more expensive, except, let's say, for the CEO of the company and etc. And this is because if something is not done correctly in big projects, this will lead to losses accounting for millions of dollars, and somebody will be responsible for that. We know that it's not the quality assurance specialist who is responsible for the product released, but in fact, the quality assurance specialist is responsible in a way. Such a specialist should possess certain knowledge. And it is essential for such a person to have the high level of mathematics and applied mathematics. Otherwise, you won't be able to multiply two matrices or to build vectors. Or there'll be a big problem with algorithm planning, and we won't be able to move on. Another minimum requirement would be to know the mathematical analysis, or what we call it, the theory of calculus, then the first course of probability theory, and discrete mathematics is an essential skill which is vital for a software programmer. Languages of programming which are obligatory for quality assurance specialists. So these are functional languages. There are quite a number of them in the modern world. I would not focus on Husky. It is not a widely used language. It might be used in some of the projects. For instance, the Deutsche Bank uses it in the hyper trading. This is great, and one should be familiar with that. But Husky is very difficult to be tested. It's hard to understand what is written inside. Another language is the object-oriented language. It depends on people's preferences, on where the wind blows. It could be the Java world or the Sharp world or the PHP. This is also the object-oriented language. The next one are domain-specific languages. I will not list them. XML, for instance. Surely the person should know it. Let's move on. Additional knowledge which such a specialist has to be familiar with is operation system. During the interview, I will be asking questions about the differences in the operation systems. First time when I started to work as the quality assurance specialist, which happened many years ago, I was given a processor block and I was given 2 CDs. One of them was the Windows for the desktops. The second one had the Windows for the network. And they just told me, go and start work. So my task was to install 2 Windows on one hardware. And that was the first check which I had to go through. Next is databases. Clearly, if you're only using SQL, it's not enough. You're not a quality assurance specialist, know only one database. Networks must be familiar for the software engineer, because without knowledge of networks and network communication, you won't be able to test any applications. You might do some of the application testing, but most likely your customer will not be able to see the due performance. You might have forgotten that you have to store everything in caches. Does anyone do security check out of the people present here? Oh, one person does. Usually, quality assurance specialists know very little about security. Only the advanced ones do. And the theory of testing is important. I have many times seen that this is a very rare discipline taught at university. It is quite difficult to get a pass in the theory of testing. And I would have never become familiar with the theory of testing myself if my dad hadn't worked as the associate professor at university a long time ago, and he was a lecturer on the theory of measurement. And he used to tell me, if the students just appeared in my exam, I will give them a score of 3. If somebody manages to do at least one task in the theory of measuring, then it's a 4. That will be the mark. This seems to be a challenging discipline. It's complicated. Hard to say whether it's needed or not, but sometimes a person will have to remember the core things out of it. Let's go through the tasks which a quality specialist could be assigned to. The first thing is to check quality of stories. Everyone, of course, should be familiar and know how to create documentation in different languages. Sometimes it is not easy. It's good if it's English, but if somebody tells you that, okay, we have a German customer and he cannot live without such good German language-based documentation. And the specialists must be able to very fast create a framework if he doesn't want to use the ready-made tailored solution, and the person should be well aware of the automation processes. If a quality specialist knows nothing about automation, we could hire a monkey, let the monkey do it itself. A good quality specialist easily checks developers' code. It's not a white box testing. Though there are developers who also could do some tests. But here we mean different things. I will focus on it later. And he should be able to write the unit test credited. You get integration tests and creating other tests. And the most interesting thing is testing. I have put here just one line, and later at the end of my presentation I'll explain why only line. Next stage is release engineering. So you know best of all who your team members are, you know very well the dependencies between the systems, and very well advanced quality specialists quite well work with the Bamboo, with the TeamCity, with with this most famous DevAzu app. It's the latest achievement of Microsoft. Let's go through the check quality stories, what it has inside. I think that you all can read the English language, and I will not translate it. This seems to be quite clear. At the end, you can add more notions, and you have to be able to understand business-wise how to look at the story and what should be placed and where it should be placed. By the way, business value of story is cleared. Has anyone ever argued with the product manager that this is not supposed to be done because it's not profitable? Then why should we do that? If we're creating a story and it doesn't bring any money, any profit, then why? Because sometimes our teams, the quality specialists, used to tell that, okay, there is no business value in that, so why should we go for that? But creating documentation is an essential part. There could be certain setups. It depends on which documentation, who creates, what it does, what test plans and what test parts are. And then you might also have here the quality handbook, such a big book containing rules and guidelines. Those who have experience in working in the financial sector and those who understand the importance of certification clearly see that without such things, certification will not be issued. And I can speak quite a lot about creating and support testing framework. I still have 3 minutes and I can continue, but I'm joking. Has anyone ever written frameworks? Do you write frameworks for yourselves? Such support frameworks. Why should you just take something that people only create? Usually when a person takes a created, tailored framework, you will feel that something is missing. Somebody could have forgotten to add GSM messaging. Or I'd like to test the RBRQ, but the framework does not allow to do this because it lacks certain features. Okay, I will not be using then the tailored solution. I will write my own framework. But when a person joins the company, only one member of the company knows how this framework works. Nobody apart from him works. I have experience of working with the kind of small gaming company, and I came to talk to them, and they just asked me, show me the framework and show me how this framework works. And I was lucky enough because a friend of mine developed this framework and he explained to me how it all worked. And nobody in that company knew how that framework works because they decided to create their own tailored solution using the JavaScript. I think it was called, let me remember what the name of this framework was. Lazy.js. Have you ever heard about this stuff? Oh, Glaze.js. It's a nice thing, right? It takes time until you learn how it works. Then checking of developers' code, or we can put it developers' code review. If you do direct white box testing, you should have the level of knowledge as if you were an architect, and you should review the code and send it back at once. I do not think that this is the task that the quality assurance specialist performs. His task is rather to see whether the developers have done everything correctly while they're checking the code. Advanced quality specialists usually work as developers, and developers write the UI tests. And quality specialists only check whether everything has been written sufficiently. It's not their level to check really what developers do. Let's move on. Some of the developers are lazy enough to write unit and integration tests, and you have to do that instead of them. You can explain to them several times that this is not the way it should be done. Okay, please have a look how it should be done. But the solution is simple. One of the teams installed a plugin in Jenkins, and this plugin, based on the Java script, checks the quantity of classes, checks whether unit tests are written for these classes, but as soon as the coverage decreases in 1%, there is no further build, it just stops. So the thing is that you have to continue and finish writing the test, and this is increase the level of discipline. If no, then
До свидания. Ну, интеграционные тесты подчас, да, нам приходится писать. Опять же, из линии девелоперов, но здесь сложнее, потому что, наверное, может быть, только quality assurance специалист хорошо знает, какие интеграционные тесты нужны, потому что иногда девелоперы даже не догадываются, для чего он написал этот кусок кода. Ну, у него он все замакапил, вокруг себя заложил, у него все хорошо, и даже не догадывается, что там какие-то связи пошли, что еще что-то. Надо нам это все писать. UI-тесты.
UI tests. Yes, I've already mentioned this in very developed companies and very. Developers are writing their tests, and developers are very angry when they're writing these tests. And one of the developers said, "Okay, you said that, cool. Yes, we know those. In Tallinn, we have the company called Telebor. They don't have quality assurance experts at all. They have XP programming. One of them writes tests, the other one writes code, and then vice versa, and it works perfectly up to the UI tests, and all the tests are written in such a way. It is very expensive to hire the experts because they always send 2 people, but the efficiency is great. I could see guys doing it, and I could recommend all of you to fire quality assurance, just hire good senior developers who know testing and who love testing and who can guarantee that their code will be efficient. And do you remember I was saying before that some quality assurance have to know how to test at least a little bit. So this is a standard slide showing what we must know what to do and how to do it, like alphabet, simple things, standard things, and some do some smog and integration and sanity. Has anyone done sanity testing? No, I don't know what this is. Compatibility stresses, monkeys, gorillas, exploratory. All these things mean something. And load performance. Load performance also is about your knowledge, so you have to know how to do load testing and performance testing. For some reason, well, maybe this is right. The quality assurance expert needs to know how to do it, and you have to know networking, operational systems, cloud computing, how everything is happening there, because when you do some performing and load testing, you won't be able to do it without knowing this. Has any one of you done real load testing in order for everything to be fully loaded? I mean, normal one. Okay. Let's put it in a simple language. Let's say we have some application running around, and we have lots of customers who tested this. They are from unknown locations. Okay, whenever people tell this to me, I tell them, don't do it yourself. Outsource this. You won't be able to do it because you will do testing, networking only inside your company in the best case scenario. In the worst case scenario, you will test only one processor of your service. How many threads will come through? Not a long time ago, we had a very interesting testing. If I'm not mistaken, if in the same time slot, within the same time slot, not in nanoseconds, but in the same time, your web form will get 22 requests, your web form will break. Try it. If you can do this, if you can simulate it, try it. 22 will kill it because the processor has only 8 cores. That's it. So your load testing will be done, finished, and you can clearly say and honestly that your system will support 22 concurrent requests. And if you get more, then it will die. And sometimes the processor releases threads faster than you load it, because you loaded different machines. So we are in such a beautiful place. And okay, let's go to release engineering. This is a standalone topic. For some reason, developers engineers cannot set up all quality gates. They cannot do it themselves, so you have to get into it, you have to understand it, you have to set quality gates as cookie plugins and others, and you have to explain why you can load it and why you cannot, and how many tests you have to adjust your system. If three it failed, and then it's okay, but then you have to do it on CI and add everything. You do it yourself, usually. Certainly, you can write to developing engineers, do it right, but they don't know what right means from your point of view. And now the question is, well, I don't know. We probably have to think about this question. Who believes that testing is harder than developing? Do we have any people in the room believing so? We have one. Okay, so the rest of you are not testing. Means, okay, excellent. So, do you have any ideas why testing is more sophisticated? Okay. Unfortunately, the speaker is not using the microphone, and the interpreter cannot get the message. Okay, we'll finish the presentation and then we'll discuss questions and answers. I have a quick comment. Why testing is harder than development? Because if you have agile team and user story hurries up, and developers are willing to get deep into the isolated part of the code and lose connectivity to other components, and then they lose the view of the whole picture, and testers have to consider all testing capabilities, including the things, yes, they have to consider all the aspects. And actually, writing code is is easier rather than to understand. Understanding the code written by another person is very difficult. Sometimes you think, what the hell, and why? Why is it that horrible? It's a nightmare. And writing a code is easy. You get 4 chairs on the left, 5 chairs on the right, and then you think, okay, for SQL, you are not going to write it. If you have 4 and 5, okay, you just put a Docker and some other things, you assemble it, and then you give it to you. Thank you. And then you ask the developer, why do you have that? Why do you need 84 kilobytes to do this if you need only 2 lines of the code? Okay, do you have any other ideas why it is harder testing than developing? So the rest of you think that testing is bullshit. And, well, one of my colleagues once said, well, first we hired linguists to be testers. You know why? Huh? It is cheaper? No. Nobody could read the specification in English, and it was written by the American product companies. That's it. It was many years ago, yes, but it was the case. And the company that employed me first, I had a suspicion, bad suspicion, that even our cleaning lady had a degree in computer science, because when she cleaned around our machines, she would never plug off the cable, the LAN cable. And the other cleaning lady worked in our data center in California, if I'm not mistaken, and every second week, when she cleaned the place, the same server would lose connectivity to us. So that's it. So that was a cleaning lady, a beautiful cleaning lady. Well, I guess this is the end of my ad hoc presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm ready to answer any of your questions, if you have any. In your team, who talks to people, to business analysts, or who talks to business? Well, I mean, as specifications are concerned. Yes, I will explain. I used to work in different teams in different situations, and I very much like when quality assurance experts and architects talk to businesses. The three of them have free area meetings. The three of them sit and discuss it according to the agile principle. Before the backlog heads all the tasks, before estimating, before everything, the quality assurance expert takes a look at the risks, reviews whether this complies with the requirements of the specification. And the architect says that it's impossible to do it by architecture. We have to change the whole system. That's it. We have a monolith. We have to rewrite it. We have to change the system. The product owner says, no, we don't have money. And then there are some technical gaps that we managed to do in sprint mode. And I think that having this triple discussion is better. And certainly people, I mean, the quality assurance and the architecture engineer need to understand business, as well as developers, actually. A good developer can advise things, and when implementing, it is possible to agree things and do them a bit differently, and this is normal. I used to work in a company where we had only senior developers and architects. That's it. One more thing I wanted to mention. And it's the first time when I am saying that. Who believes that there can be junior QA? What junior QA means? What is this? Do you know what junior QA? Well, out of my practice, it is a limited project with limited testing, covered with automated tests with VPI 90%, and the rest are just a half a day student to click the rest 10 because the budget is too small, and then they hire junior QAs because automation and the framework will cost more than half a day of a student. Wouldn't be better to take a junior developer, a student, and let them grow to the junior QA? Is that right? Well, in fact, do you want to say that it happened? Well, yeah, it was almost like you say, but a little bit different. Well, I think that in QA and Kanagi, the German company that I work for, maybe you don't know the company, hardly people heard of the company. The company, well, have you heard of DHL? Well, of course, because they bring stuff to your homes. This is the second largest company in the world in this business, but they do B2B. If you see the logo similar to Gustavsberg logo, and then people associate it with toilet seats, and they say that you are like, but in fact we're not. What did I want to say? Okay, in this company it was a tradition. In order for you to get a QA, you had to be meet developer, and this was the minimum requirement. Without that, they wouldn't take you. And there were exceptions for the IT analysts. After 10 years of IT analysis, then, well, people who do analytics, they also know how to develop things, but they would never take people at random from the street. I can hardly imagine a person who can pass an interview for QA. Okay, they will ask all of these things at the interview. Okay, they say that they say we have the QA senior engineer or QA engineer. They're not saying whether they're senior or not, and they'll say, okay, use JavaScript to test your skills. Write me something, and then to take something like object-oriented stuff, and then tell us briefly about how to do testing. And you know something about testing in DSLQB? Okay, I don't know whether a junior will be able to do this. A person who graduated from university can do all this it's impossible to pass it. I know that people having university degrees do not know what GE unit and PHP unit and C#. They don't know this. They are not teaching this stuff in some universities. In English-speaking universities, when you are taught to do software engineering, they teach you to develop in the following way. The professor gives you tests, and he says, make them green, and that's it. In Russian universities and Estonian universities, I don't know about Latvian ones. Maybe when they are in grade 3, they say, okay, there's a testing framework, so you can test stuff first. Any more questions? I have one. Don't you think that the requirements that you are speaking about the testers to be able to be mid-level developers at least, is not met by many companies? There are multiple companies having different requirements for their vacancies, and they hardly have any job interviews to write JavaScript and software, and they don't even ask about SQL. I fully agree with you. And my opinion is as follows. If you need a quality assurance expert of such a low level, just outsource it. As Distiller, UTest, and other platforms, let them do the job for you. They don't have quality assurance people. They have people from all around the world. Okay, I decided to make some extra money at night, and I do it for you. So it is cheaper to outsource it rather than to hire people and keep them on a payroll. Even if you have to sign an NDA on all the stuff, don't hire people who are not professionals. You are a developing company, and you are not just an in-and-out company. This is my humble opinion. In German companies, they share this opinion. They think that you don't have to keep people on your payroll if they do not fit to your company profile. In the Russian language countries, I'm not going to be saying in the former USSR, I know the situation is different. It is very cheap here. So you can hire a person paying peanuts. But in Finland, the minimum salary is like 2,300 euro per month. So whoever you hire, you will pay 2,300, and you hire a QA who is not a QA, and then you pay 2,300. Or you hire 2,400. You hire a good expert for 2,400, and that's why they don't do it, because it is too expensive. They hire a platform that will take peanuts for doing this job. The economic situation is different here. That's it. One more thing, soft skills of people. It is much more convenient to be working with an expert who has a lower level of professionalism, but it is faster to talk to him or her in your office rather than talking to an Indian guy who lives on the other side of the world trying to do it for peanuts for you, and there will be higher risks. No, usually you don't talk to Indians for peanuts, and I can see that the person is sitting here and smiling. I'm sorry for what my colleague is saying. Yes, the company that I used to work for closed their office in India at all, just because of that. Fully closed. Yes, it was very difficult for them, because all the people who live in India think that they speak English. Yes?
Of course.
And we also think that we speak English. They think that we speak English. They think that we think, and then we do not understand each other. And by the way, if you're working with good native-speaking developers from the south of England, you won't understand them. I'm not speaking about Scotch. You will be getting into it. Well, it's normal. People have to communicate and understand each other. Well, dialects can be different, but after working with them for a while, you will be talking to them perfectly, either Chinese or whoever. And in fact, in the IT world, you will not find things for peanuts. All of us are very expensive professionals, and you will have to cope with this. Everybody needs us. There's a huge queue of employees who are standing and waiting for you to be hired by them. good universities, they have a huge line of top tech companies willing to hire you after your graduation. Do I have 1 minute? Okay. I visited Amsterdam recently, and there was a conference and there was a PhD student, and the guy was very colorful from London, and he's always walking around in, how can I put it softly, in gear for a bike, for biking. Either he bikes or not, it's for a bike. It's an English-speaking Spanish guy. Very brightful. I'm coming to him saying that you have an excellent written hyper-trading stuff. He has a very interesting PhD. He's a tester. Okay. It was a conference for the testers with PhD. And these guys come to the conference because they have to report, otherwise they cannot get their PhD. You have to publish your articles. And I'm saying, well, you are such a beautiful guy, but you must be having some London a bank in London will hire you. And he says, well, Google hires me already. They offered me a job, and you can have any gear, any clothing, so they don't care. So that's about soft skills. So thank you very much. One more question to you. You are getting 2 tickets, one for the T-shirt for you, and then you can pick up any in the audience and give a T-shirt. But nobody wanted to ask questions. How come? Well, strange people. Don't you think so? Let this be given to the young guy who didn't have time. Okay, let him come to me later. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. And it was a very ad hoc presentation. I had to substitute my colleague who didn't want to say anything to you, but next time we'll force him to do so. Thank you for your attention.